Okay, here I am going to talk about the Jerusalem artichokes. I did a bunch of filming. That will come next. But what I forgot to mention, folks, was this bed here that we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about the one behind it on the other end. But when I revamped the soil in this bed, this bed is probably 12 feet long and 4 feet wide. When I revamped all this section here, I dug out over 200 Jerusalem artichoke tubers. I handed them out to some people that wanted to establish a Jerusalem artichoke patch. Now, every year or every other year, I could revamp. If I don't eat any, or maybe one or two, I could get rid of 200 tubers easy in just this one section alone. A lot of times what I will do is reestablish another patch somewhere else. This here is a patch that's going to stay here. So this patch here has been here for just about 8 years. And every time I revamp it, I can get rid of over 200 tubers and still have enough for this bed. This right here, I like to plant them, the tubers 4 inches deep and about a foot apart. Sometimes if there's a small tuber, like the size of a quarter or a nickel, I'll leave that in the ground and I'll put like a 3-inch tuber in there and set it in. If I have a handful of small tubers, I'll put them in the same hole. Again, 4 inches deep, a foot apart. And this is what you'll end up getting. Now, if you were to plant these, this is a really good crop to have if you are going to try to help self-sustain you. If you want a sustainable life, growing your own food, this right here is guaranteed. So far, all the years that I have grown these, and I haven't grown them just here, this patch here is about 8 years old. I've got other patches that are much older. Every year, I can dig as many Jerusalem artichokes as I wish to dig out. So this is a really good crop to have if you want food on hand that you can eat all year round. Now, I have found that it grows in just about any kind of soil. It grows in all kinds of grow zones, but it grows better with different types of soil than it does others. And it grows better in different grow zones than it does others. But still, from what I gather, from even the deep south, zone 9, zone 10, you can still grow Jerusalem artichokes. So, and they will multiply, and you can eat them year round. These just happen to grow very, very well here, very well. And on with the video. Okay, so in order to film this, I've got the tripod in the bog grass, because the bog is high. We just got an incredible amount of rain. We got some rain anyway, and the bog is high. And this is where I'm at. So I am beside my Jerusalem artichoke. Now, if you're not familiar with Jerusalem artichoke, what the Jerusalem artichoke is, it's part of the sunflower family. It's also called a sunchoke. Now, it's different than the regular artichoke that you get in a restaurant, or you can grow it up here actually. They have little spiky things. It's like a globe. These are a very tall plant. They can get anywhere from 8 to 12 feet tall. It'll grow in just about any type of soil, but it does best in full sun with loose organic footing. So the plant, when it flowers out, will have it'll be much taller than this. It'll be at least twice as tall, if not 3 times taller. It will have little sunflower-like flowers, blossoms. But underneath, the tuber is what you're after. Now, the tuber can be anywhere from the size of a quarter, or it could be as large as a russet potato. The tuber is what you're after with the Jerusalem artichokes. Now, the stem goes into the ground, and you could get anywhere from 2 or 3 tubers of different sizes down to 10 or 12, 15, 16 tubers that are pretty good sized in one root system. So I started out with 12 Jerusalem artichoke tubers, planted them 8 years ago now, and I've already split up and divided these plants several times. Now in the fall, 2 weeks after a hard frost, when the plants die back, 2 weeks after the plants die fully back, is when I like to harvest them. They are similar to the texture of either a raw potato or a water chestnut. After the plants died back, they become quite sweet, and they have a very nutty, very pleasant nutty flavor. They do store, but they don't store as well as like a potato. You can store the tubers either in damp sand, potential spam. I can tell you right now, since I downloaded the app for Newsbreak, I've been getting a lot of spam calls, so I think I'm going to get rid of that app. So are we still recording? Yes, we are. So the best way to store Jerusalem artichokes is right in the ground. Dig them up as you need them. But if you want to dig a bunch up and store them, you can put them in some sort of plastic bag with a wet paper towel or 2 in there, or damp paper towel or 2 in there, and store them in the bottom of your refrigerator and eat them up within a couple weeks, I would say. So they do not store well. They don't store like a potato, but they are a potato substitute. Now, there's several good things about the Jerusalem artichoke. If you are diabetic, it has a low glycemic index. It does not affect your sugar, hardly at all. So for those of you who like your potato, Jerusalem artichoke could be a pretty good substitute. You can cook the Jerusalem artichoke. You can peel them and boil them. You could fry them in a frying pan. I heard you can can them up. I heard that you can pickle them. I'm not sure. I've never done either of those. I have seen them boiled up like potato. They do turn like a translucent, have like a translucency to them when they are cooked. My preferred way of eating them, and the only way I have eaten them actually, is to dig them up, rinse them off, peel them, and then eat them raw. That's my preferred way. That's how I've always eaten them. I heard boiling them up and stir frying them, they're really good too. But I can only attest to their taste, their texture, and their yumminess, if you want to call it that, of eating them raw. Now, when you eat them raw, they're like a potato. We're eating a raw potato or a fresh water chestnut. They have that crispiness to them. Another good thing about Jerusalem artichoke, once you plant them, you let them get established, they are in that area for a very long time, even if you try to dig them up. It doesn't take much to reestablish another plant. Sometimes the tubers will will spread out just underneath the soil. Sometimes they'll go down, well, I've seen them down 2 feet deep in loose, fertile soil. So once you have them, you have them. You can eat them all year round. In the summer, like right now, if I were to pull up a plant or dig up a tuber, they wouldn't have much flavor right now. It would taste quite bland, but you can eat it in the summertime. You can dig them up in the winter. If you can break the soil and get down there, you can eat them throughout the winter. My preferred method is a couple of weeks after the first hard frost, or at least 2 hard frosts. When the plants die all the way back, I will keep digging them until the ground freezes. So that's what I do. So like I said, I started out with 12 tubers. They cost me a very pretty penny years ago. I would hate to say how much they cost now because they go on pounds, and you could easily get a half a pound, 3/4 of a pound, or a pound tuber, or you can get them the size of a golf ball, about the size of a golf ball, about the size of a quarter. So nothing, I have never found, as many years as I've been growing these Jerusalem artichokes, or Jerusalem artichokes in general, I have never found where anything has gotten into the tuber. I have never found bug damage, worm damage, anything. So they're pretty safe bet. Now the only thing basically that the flying bugs like about Jerusalem artichoke is the Japanese beetles will get on there, but they don't tend to eat the plant. It's almost like they fly and they rest on it and then they move on. The hornets like them. I'm not sure what the hornets like about the Jerusalem artichokes, but the ants tend to like Jerusalem artichokes quite a lot. Now, I don't know if they're the ones that are putting holes in some of my leaves. It could be, but I've seen them basically just crawling up and down the stem. Now, I will take you off the tripod and I will walk you over to them so you can see the stem with the ants on them, and I'll show you what happens when you do not take care of your sunchokes. You leave them to do whatever they want to do after 8 years. So this here, this tall greenery stuff here, the dark green, the real healthy looking plants, those have been taken care of. I have thrown compost in there. I've amended the soil. I've taken care of this half of the Jerusalem artichokes, but even this section, this half, is split in half with an experiment, and I'll show you what I found out with that as well, and what kind of experiment that I am doing with my Jerusalem artichokes. So let me show you ants. I don't know if that's going to focus, but ants like to crawl on the Jerusalem artichoke. I don't know if you can see those in there or not. But ants like to crawl on the Jerusalem artichoke. They don't seem to do much damage at all. So these Jerusalem artichoke here that I'm showing you are as tall as I am. This half over here, I added less compost in this bed, this half, than I did in this half, and these are about, well, they're over a foot taller on this half. So the more organic compost that you use, the bigger the plant will be, the healthier the plant will be. And I am assuming, this is part of the trial, is which half will give me more bang for my buck with tubers when it comes time to harvesting. So like I said, this half over here, it's about shoulder high. This half here is head high. This side here has double the compost than this side here. which has half the compost as this. So far I can see a big difference in the plant itself. So what happens when you do not take care of your Jerusalem artichokes? You do not amend the soil, you completely ignore it. For about 7-8 years, this bed here is what you get. Okay, they're pretty stunted, they're light green, they're pretty spindly, versus right there. See the difference? This side here has amended soil. This side here I completely neglected. Big difference in height, big difference in the whole plant altogether. And the experiment continues. What will I get for tubers with this bed here where I have not amended the soil? Will I get smaller tubers here? Will the tubers be as good eating? The plant itself looks pretty malnourished, right? That bed right there looks pretty malnourished compared to here. Big difference. Will these have all plant or will they have bigger tubers? Don't know. We're going to find out. And again, twice as much organic material in here, this bed, versus half the organic material in this bed. What will the tubers look like? What size will they be? What will the taste be? And what will the harvest be? Will it be a bigger harvest? Or will have all the organic matter in on this side of the bed grow mostly plant and not tubers? It has been my experience years ago that the healthier the plant, the bigger, the better the harvest on the Jerusalem artichokes. So Jerusalem artichokes really will grow in just about any type of soil, in just about all growing zones. The only difference is you can have them growing in dry soil, you can have them growing in clay, you can have them growing right on the, I'll show you how close I am to the bog. I mow right there, right? Here's the bed, and that's where I stop mowing because it's wet. And all that is bog grass anyway, and I mow half the bog grass. So it has been my experience over the years, and I have grown these for years, just not this batch here. This batch is 7 or 8 years old because I started over. It's been my experience that if you have a lot of organic material, you have a better plant and you have a higher yield. So I'm not thinking that this bed here is going to produce much at all. But we'll see. We'll see. So there's my experiment. I've got 2 experiments going here, right? One, they're growing in depleted soil. What will I get for an outcome? A lot of organic material, half the organic material than over here. Which side will give me the better harvest? So, yeah, stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned.